Well, let's go from you referencing Guess the Program to Guess the Program.
Yay!
Where I have here a bunch of programs from my personal collection. They are in my hand.
I have no foreknowledge of these whatsoever.
No, you don't. And we're going to mix it up. I'm going to give you some that you may have to have special rules on.
So already you're stacking a deck here.
Well,
Trying to with me.
Well, for instance, we're going to start with this one, and here's what I'm going to say. You do not have to guess. The territory will be apparent. You have to guess the year, I guess is the only thing to do. Because how are you going to guess the town? You wouldn't be able to.
Goddamn, if you can't explain it to me, then how's either one of us going to know?
Yeah, maybe I should skip this one. Let me go to a next one.
For no one now you've left me in suspense.
All right. The opening bout, Johnny Rivera versus Akira Maeda.
Okay.
The second bout, Special Delivery Jones versus Charlie Fulton. In our third contest, Tiger Chung Lee versus Jose Gonzalez.
Jesus Christ.
Our fourth contest, Tony Mr. USA Atlas versus Samoan number 2. Following that, we have Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Rocky Johnson. And the final contest, main event, 1 fall, 1 hour time limit. Jimmy Superfly Snuka versus Samoan number 1.
Okay, well, obviously it's a WWF show. And that's why you were trying to say guess the year. And obviously Akira Maeda is the outlier here that makes everybody go, ooh, because when the fuck would he ever have been there, correct?
I think a lot of people would say, because you're not going to guess where, why the fuck was Akira Maeda in Sheepshead Bay? Yes, I think they will be saying that.
Okay, and you're in Sheepshead Bay, New York, right?
That's right.
And the year would have to be 1983, wouldn't it?
See, there's where I thought you would go. The date, Tuesday, May 15th, 1984. Sheepshead Bay High School, Brooklyn, New York. So you talk about spot shows. Here's a WWF spot show, Sheepshead Bay.
Wow. I would have thought that was 83 just because I would have thought it was 83. But it was 84. So son of a bitch.
All right, well, let's go to this next card here. The opening bout. Mike Sharp versus Rocky Brown. The next bout.
Okay, I've already going to name this. That was East Sheepshead Bay, New York. Okay, go ahead.
The next bout, Bob Orton versus Johnny Barend.
Okay.
There's the twist, right?
There's the twist. We're going with Mike Sharp Sr., but he wasn't a senior then because Junior wasn't around. And we're not going with Bob Orton Jr. because it's Bob Orton Sr.
The next bout, Gorilla Cepeda.
Oh, good Lord.
And Gene Dubuque versus Enrique Torres and Bobo Brazil. And finally, the main event, 1 hour, 2 out of 3 falls. Leon Namalini versus Jesus Ortega.
Okay, you give me something to work with there. Because with Mike Sharp, it could have been anywhere at any time over the period of his career, but at this era, this is the 1950s, and Mike Sharp is obviously noted for his incredible run with Brother Ben in San Francisco. Bob Orton is Bob Orton Sr., and before Bob Orton Sr. would have probably been a very major name in pro wrestling. Johnny Barend was obviously a major attraction in the late 50s in not only the Northeast, but he was one of Buddy Rogers' packs, so he would travel around to the various territories with him. Enrique Torres and Bobo Brazil teaming would definitely not let it be anywhere down south. and Leo Nomalini, one of the greatest stars in the history of San Francisco, in the main event against Jesus. Would that be Jesse the Bull Ortega? Or he would become that?
I believe so.
We're in San Francisco in the 50s, aren't we?
We certainly are.
And now we just got to figure out a year, and it would be 56?
So close.
Ah!
Tuesday, January 25th, 1955, 8:30 p.m. at Winterland in San Francisco.
The Winterland Arena.
That's right. Bill Graham presents The Grateful Dead.
All right. 1 year. I was 1 year off on each one of these son of a bitches.
The front of the program, West Coast Wrestling News. Leo Nomalini, the uncrowned champion of the world, will have his hands full with big Jesus Ortega, 305 pounds, Stonewall, who there's no sentence, no period or comma anywhere yet, who no one has been able to bring down to the mat and no one has been able to phase with a drop kick or flying tackle, period. We are wondering if Leo will be able to move the big Mexican with his powerful tackle and block, which no one has been able to take and get up again. Last Tuesday, who wrote this? Last Tuesday, Leo finished off Pico with a tackle that threw the Mexican 12 feet into the air. And on the back of the program is because this is a selling point, a picture of Sam Mushnick. And it says, Leo Nomalini is hitting faster and harder with his tackle than he ever did before. Therefore, he is getting hotter on the trail of champion Lou Thez. Sam Mushnick, president of NWA, there's no commas, I'm just doing it myself, will be in San Francisco Sunday, January 23rd, when Leo Nomalini will speak to him about forcing champion Lou Thez into meeting him in the near future.
And we know how that worked out.
A contested title claim. But let's go to our next program here. This is the card from the program. Let's see how well you know this. The opening bout, the Sheepherders versus Bugsy McGraw and Ricky Santana. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin versus Rick Steiner. Mike Rotunda versus Sting. I'm not naming any championships as I name this.
Right.
Nikita Koloff versus Al Perez. The Midnight Express versus the Fantastics. The Road Warriors versus the Powers of Pain in a steel cage match. Nature Boy Ric Flair versus Steve Dr. Death Williams. And finally, Lights Out Grudge match. Lex Luger and Dusty Rhodes versus Tully Blanchard and Barry Windham. I left out the managers, not that you wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah.
Let's see how well you know your stuff.
Oh my gosh. So we started the angle with the Fantastics in March of 1988, and it ran through July, early August of 1988. So we are within that time period. This looks to me like a Great American Bash card, which would have put it somewhere between really the end of June and the first part of August that year. Because Flair is working with Dr. Death. The Sheepherders are on the card. You've got Sting and Steiner.
Powers of Pain are on the card.
Well, the Powers of Pain are on the card, yes. But I'm talking about the guys that were absorbed from the UWF. And with Doc wrestling Flair, one would lead us to believe that that was the old UWF territory. But now the thing is, now that I'm looking at that, all that stuff should have happened in 1987. So the question is this a Great American Bash event or a big event in Houston from before, where we would worked with the Fantastics earlier than our program started. Now you've got me questioning myself.
You shouldn't question that. You were going the right way.
I was going the right way.
You were more in the year of the right way. I'll put it that way.
So it's 1988, but is it a Bash card or is it a Houston card?
Before we go any further, Houston in 87, Paul Bosch sells to Vince McMahon. He then promotes NWA.
True. Well,
coming back in 88.
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask you, what was Houston like? Were they getting big cards from the NWA in 1988?
Well, it would have for the Bash, even though we weren't drawing there anymore. Or would this have been Dallas?
Well, I'll give you the town and the date. Here we are.
Go ahead.
Championship Wrestling, St. Louis, Missouri.
What?
Friday, May 27th, 1988.
Good God. Okay. So I don't know what the fuck they were thinking booking Flair with Doc in St. Louis.
There were a lot of questionable St. Louis decisions after 1982.
Boy, there sure were.
Let's go to this.
Holy shit. I would never have thought that. And that was way too big of a card for St. Louis with the business that St. Louis was doing at that point in time. I'll tell you that.
This next one is an interesting one here, Jim. The opening bout, Hugh McKenzie versus John Tolos.
Wait a minute, hold on here. I got to get a new piece of paper. So Hugh Tex McKenzie versus John Tolos.
Boy, that must have been an exciting match.
Ooh.
Well, I shouldn't say that. If that match took place 20 years later, it may have been the worst match of all time. But there was probably all right.
Well, Tolos was moving around pretty good back then, but Tex was never.
Never.
Yeah.
Chief Blackhawk versus Ali Bay.
Lord.
Duke Hiamuka versus Cowboy Bob Ellis.
Holy shit.
Dickie Steinborn versus Rito Romero. And finally, the main event for a championship I will not name, 2 out of 3 falls, 90-minute time limit. The champions, Ike Eakins and Wild Bill Longson versus Pepper Gomez and El Medico.
Good Lord. Okay. We're pretty goddamn sure we're in Texas. Hugh McKenzie would later on become Tex McKenzie, but he probably was in the process of stealing the gimmick from Cowboy Bob Ellis, who was later on in the card.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together about that. You're probably right.
John Tolos had been a successful team with his brother in the 50s, and honestly, this may be before that. I don't know who Chief Blackhawk was. Ali Bay could have been any number of people. Duke Hiamuka, that was long before he went to Florida, I would imagine. Dickie Steinborn and Rito Romero is Rito Romero is another reason it makes me think we're in Texas. And Ike Eakins and Bill Longson against Pepper Gomez and El Medico. Here is my issue, in that I would place it with Gomez in Texas and Bob Ellis in Texas and Rito Romero. I would place this anywhere from like 58, 59, 60, 61, but is that too late for Bill Longson?
There's the twist for this one.
Are you going to tell me what the twist is, or I got to figure that out too?
Oh, I didn't know if you were done figuring out your own twists and turns over there.
Oh, well, I'm twisting in the wind here. And Ike Eakins, I've got to think. I'm going to try to put this right in the middle of as late as I think that Longson would be figured in, and as early as I think that Hugh McKenzie wouldn't be Tex, but Bob Ellis would be Bob Ellis at that point, because he was Bob Elliott in West Texas in the early 50s. Pepper Gomez also isn't goddamn as old as the Hills. He didn't start till, mid-50s, at least in this country. 1956. Fuck it.
The date? Friday, August 15th, 1958. Houston, Texas. The City Auditorium, Morris Siegel promoter. World Tag Team title at stake for first time here. Champions ready for action. The champions being Bill Longson and Ike Eakins.
So did they come in, since first time ever at stake, did they come in to put the belts on Gomez and Medico?
While Bill Longson and Flat Top Ike Eakins, the tag team champions of the world, are stripped. Are stripped and ready for action in the first defense ever made of the World Tag Team title in the state of Texas. Not only are they ready for action, but they are confident they can whip the challengers, Pepper Gomez and El Medico, in the 2 out of 3 falls scrap. Here's a quote, allegedly, from Longson. "This is duck soup for a couple real champions like Ike and me. It will be no trouble at all. I doubt if we will get a good sweat up against those fellows. Besides, they couldn't even beat Kiamuka and Tolis last week. I saw Kiamuka tag Tolis, and the referee wouldn't let him in the ring. This is duck soup, made out of a couple of Mexicans."
Well,
Eakins was equally vocal and equally certain on the result. "Longson is a great partner and in great shape. He will take a fall on each of those fellows tonight, and we will win in 2 straight falls. I will watch him take the falls. He won't need my help for that. Then when he beats both of them, he will take the Texas title and then the world's title. A great partner, a great partner." So I don't know if they're coming in or what their story is exactly.
Good Lord. Well, and Bill Longson, still number 4 on the all-time biggest box office attraction list? Is that where we had him placed last?
Yeah, what do you know about Ike Eakins? Because I don't know I know the name, but I don't know too much about him. I didn't realize he was teaming up with Bill Longson in Texas in 58.
I've seen pictures, and that was a little late for him too, but I've seen pictures. I don't know there's any film out there. He used the stump puller, and at one point I believe he may have been a Kentucky hillbilly.
Well, Jim, our next card here. I was about to give you the date. That would defeat the purpose. Our next card here, the opening bout, I should say, Chris Adams versus Scott Hogg Irwin.
Ooh. Okay.
For an not undefined or undetermined, I know what it is. For an unlisted championship, Jake the Snake Roberts versus Buck Rock'n'Roll Zumhoff. Iceman King Parsons and Skip Young versus Kelly Kiniski and Buddy Roberts.
Odd.
Mike Gallagher versus Gino Hernandez. Terry Gordy versus The Missing Link. And the main event, Kerry Von Erich versus Michael Hayes.
Okay, we are obviously in world-class wrestling.
Yes.
Chris Adams, Scott Irwin, Jake the Snake versus Zumhoff. Parsons and Skip Young. Again, Kelly Kiniski and Buddy Roberts sounded like an odd pairing, but that's just because Gordy and Hayes are involved in singles matches, and there was Buddy on the card. I assume that Gallagher was just a local job guy, but that was not Doc and Mike Gallagher of the Gallagher brothers, 20 years later against Gino. So that has to be 1983, does it not? And hold on. It could be 1984, but I would think it would be 1983. And the question is, where in the world-class territory, the Dallas Sportatorium or Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth would be obvious. So perhaps you're trying to throw me off. So I'm going to say that this was at the Joe and Harry Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio in 1983.
The date, August 27th, 1984.
Oh, God damn it!
The Will Rogers Coliseum.
All right.
World-class championship.
You crossed me up by making it too obvious.
Looking at this card, what does this say about the amount of people they had working there, or the lack of the amount of people they really... I mean, I guess you don't need a big crew, but...
Well, no, this was a... Are you kidding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 fucking guys, 6 matches. That was a big card for Dallas at that point.
I guess you're right. I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah, remember, we got there at 85. The spot shows were 4 matches, and one of the singles was a captain's match out of the tag teams. That way they could have 2 towns running on the same night. And Sportatorium was 6 matches, and maybe they'd add 1 with job guys. No, this was about normal.
All right, Jim. Well, our next one, we'll see how normal this is. The opening bout, Jack Armstrong versus Tony Rocco. The next bout, Skip Young versus Raul Mata. The next bout, Gordon Nelson versus Cowboy Bob Ellis. The next bout, Crusher Verdue versus Steve Kern. Ox Baker
Oh boy.
versus Joe LeDuc.
All righty. Well, we're definitely in Florida. We know that much, but keep going.
For a tag team title that I will not name, Jack and Jerry Briscoe versus Siegfried Stanky and Hans Schroeder. For another championship I will not name.
Hans Schroeder, give your notice. Okay.
I remember that story. For another championship I will not name, Buddy Wolf versus Ernie Ladd. And finally, in the main event, Dusty Rhodes versus Ivan Koloff.
Well, we're in Florida, and it's probably the Florida Tag Team title and the Florida Heavyweight title.
That is correct, for the record.
You are correct. That is correct. Boy, Bob Ellis threw me off, and then I realized he worked there in the late 70s. Jack Armstrong and Tony Rocco could have been anywhere. Skip Young was in Florida at that period of time, and Gordon Nelson was the giveaway. And then Bob Ellis confused me.
First match could have made you think it was in California.
Yes. Second match could have even been in California or even in Texas.
Yeah.
And then Crusher Verdue could have been anywhere till you got Steve Kern again. Baker and LeDuc. This is... I am going to, it's the late 70s. It's either 70, 78 or 79, I believe, because of the time period that I seem to remember Ox Baker and Joe LeDuc both working there, as well as Dusty and Ivan Koloff, Ernie Ladd. I've got to say, this is a major Florida show in 1979, 1, 2, 3, 4, with 8 matches, which means the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg in 1979.
This really isn't your day.
What?
Tuesday, May 3rd, 1977.
Oh, God damn it.
Tampa. Fort Hesterly Armory.
All right. So it was 77. Hey, I'm getting old.
All right, that's the excuse you're going to run with today?
It was 2 years and 30 miles away. I'm sorry.
All right, two more, and we'll wrap things up. This next one, the opening bout, Billy McDaniels versus Jim Mitchell. It is indeed the Black Panther,
Panther,
not listed here as such.
It's not the manager extraordinaire, but rather his namesake in previous generations.
In a judo match.
And by the way, was Billy McDaniels the one that was also Billy Blassie?
I am not certain. You may be
I believe it was when he was teamed with Fred Blassie. A judo match coming up.
A judo match. Chester Hayes versus Masa Kimura.
Ooh, that is the Kimura.
That is the original Kimura, and in fact, I didn't even know exactly how to spell it. It's just one word, Masa Kimura.
Well, I think that's the way that they didn't know how to write Japanese people's names back then. But I think his Masanori Kimura or Masa with first name, Kimura last name.
Danny Savage versus Freddie McDaniels.
Okay, well,
is that Freddie Blassie?
I think that's Fred Blassie.
Oh, no shit.
At some points, it was Freddie and Bill Blassie, and at some points, I think it was Freddie and Billy McDaniel.
Those are the only guys without pictures on here. In a tag team bout, Carl Davis and Ivan the Terrible versus Rito Romero and Carlos Guzman.
Okay.
And the main event...
Is that... well, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Is Carlos Guzman Blackie Guzman, or is that's... He had a different first name, Blackie Guzman.
Yeah, I'm uncertain about that.
Okay.
So I can't tell you that.
All right.
And finally, the main event, Wild Red Berry versus Gorgeous George.
And Berry is spelled Berry. Is that correct in that program? Or did they spell it?
That is correct.
And that's why Barry Orton, Bob Orton Jr.'s brother, his name was spelled Berry because he was named by Bob Orton Sr. after his good friend Wild Red Berry. Okay. We've talked about the McDaniels, the Black Panther Jim Mitchell. This would have been later in his career. It is the early 50s, I believe, which is later in Jim Mitchell's career. He was the first nationally known African-American star and was born here in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know what became of Chester Hayes. It may be that Kimura put the Kimura on him and fucked him up.
There's a photo of him here. To be honest with you, I don't recognize the photo, but it says, Roughhouse Chester Hayes tackles Masa Kimura, Japanese judo champ, in a special judo match tonight. Chester is a rugged fellow who has met the best.
Okay.
They needed an opponent for Kimura. That's what that is.
What was Savage's first name?
That was Danny Savage.
It's Danny Savage. So that's Savitch, right?
Savich is how it is spelled here.
Okay. Rather than Savage. Carl Davis and Ivan the Terrible, Rito Romero and Carlos Guzman scream Texas. And Red Berry being in the main event against Gorgeous George, with George probably not at his height, because his early 50s TV run has probably come to an end. Jim Mitchell being in the opening match, he's about ready for retirement. Kimura being in Texas would have to be after 1954, would it not? Because of the genesis of Japanese wrestling in general?
I can't speak to...
You can't speak
when
to
he
that.
would be in Texas. I couldn't tell you.
Red Berry, Wild Red Berry, not only a great junior heavyweight, but one of the first managers. Very good promo. He's from Kansas.
One of the first talkers.
From Kansas, but we're in Texas, and this has got to be, it's not West Texas. It's either Houston or Dallas in 1955.
You should have went with West Texas, because at least it was pointed the right direction.
Seriously?
The date, Wednesday, March 5th, 1952.
Oh, God damn it.
The Olympic Auditorium, Los Angeles, California.
Son of a bitch. Well, then, all right, that was the run where Mitchell and Gorgeous George were both in the Olympic. They had the riot in their match then. No, that was 49. Wasn't it? Yes.
I don't have John Cosper's book in front of me, but it's
all right. Well,
book.
And I've got Jim Mitchell's book over here. All right, so Mitchell went back to California. Gorgeous George was still on top. I was 3 years too late, and God damn it, that Rito Romero was around longer than I thought he was. But how did Kimura get to be on a wrestling show in the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles in 1952 when Bobby Bruns and the Sharp Brothers, etc., they didn't go over till 54?
Well, there's a few things here I'll note. Jim Mitchell, there's a photo of him here. always smiling Jim Mitchell. You can see the racial overtones there, but always smiling Jim Mitchell figures to provide a stiff test for up-and-coming Billy McDaniels on tonight's All-Star card. Win, lose, or draw, Mitchell is one of the most popular grapplers ever to show at the Olympic. So that's an interesting note there. I'm trying to see the promoter, Cal Eaton, the announcer, Jules Strongbow, Carl Davis. I'm trying to see if there's anything about Kimura. There's nothing about Kimura in here.
How does this fucking martial arts legend show up on this event?
Well, we will see. I'm just taking one last look here at the notes. The rematch of Wild Thriller. That's the main event here. Nothing about Masa Kimura in here. Well, Jim, our final program here today, maybe a little bit of a giveaway, but an interesting card considering the timing of it. The opening bout, Rick McGraw versus King Kong Bundy. The next bout, Terry Gibbs versus Ricky Steamboat. George Wells and Bret Hart versus Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. There will be a live Piper's Pit with a special guest, Mr. T. In six-man tag team action, Big John Studd, Ken Patera, and Jesse the Body Ventura versus Andre the Giant, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and the Junkyard Dog. And the main event for a championship I will not name, under Lumberjack rules, Greg the Hammer Valentine, the champion, versus Tito Santana.
It's the Intercontinental title.
It indeed is.
And the live Piper's Pit with Mr. T makes me presume that it would be either New York or Los Angeles. And obviously the fact that Mr. T is even involved makes me think that it is either very close before or very close after WrestleMania 1 or WrestleMania 2, which is the only time that Piper and T interacted. And so I don't want to make this 1 year mistake again, because it could be, I'm trying to think of what would disqualify it from being.
Look at the rest of the card.
That's what I'm doing. It's Bundy's there, but Bundy was there.
Bundy!
Bundy! You big fat piece of shit. But Bret Hart being involved, George Wells, holy shit. Would this be a build-up for WrestleMania 2? Would this be very early in 1986?
It would not.
No, but wait, there's Snuka. That's what the fucking, so it would be, see, I caught that. I didn't take my hand off the checker. I was asking a rhetorical question.
That's not the only one. Keep looking at that match.
And JYD.
Nope. Well, yeah.
But Patera, Ventura.
Well, bingo.
Yeah, so it's the build-up to WrestleMania 1, 1985, and it's either Los Angeles or Madison Square Garden. And I would think it'd be Los Angeles because MSG would probably have Hulk on top, right?
I should have added. Plus other all-star bouts featuring Barry O, Rene Goulet, David Sammartino, Matt Bourne, S.D. Jones, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Rocky Johnson, and Charlie Fulton.
Okay, so it's a TV taping. And as a result, it could be anywhere because they would bring Mr. T to TV, but they wouldn't bring him to a house show in fucking Champaign, Illinois.
Well, you got the year, you got the right time pretty much, and that's what makes this card interesting. Sunday, March 17th, 1985, St. Patrick's Day, Madison Square Garden.
Holy shit.
2 weeks before WrestleMania.
But in the same building.
In the same building. 2 weeks before WrestleMania, I said the big giveaways. Snuka, of course, is gone by the end of the year. Patera goes to jail.
Yeah.
Right after this.
And Ventura, how long would it be that he was?
He's pretty much out of the ring. He starts, he's commentating on WrestleMania 2 weeks later.
Yeah. All righty. So that's lost to history, that unless people just make an effort to look it up, that they ran Madison Square Garden 2 weeks before the biggest show they'd ever run in the history of the company in Madison Square Garden.
That's one of the things I always find amazing. Every now and then you see the clip, but no one ever thinks about when it was from, where you have the live Piper's Pit and Piper has images of Mr. T that Travis Heckel drew up, or whoever it was. That's 2 weeks before WrestleMania. That's how hot they were in New York at that point. Now it would burn out, but at that moment, they ran Madison Square Garden 2 times in 2 weeks, and they sold out both, and one of them was the biggest gate in whatever for every record for WrestleMania. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
You don't know what you're saying. It was a bigger gate than every wrestling show except Gallatin, Tennessee on July 13, 1979 with the Marlin Brothers against Buddy and Ken Wayne.
Here on the back, real quick, we'll end with this. March 31st, 1985, 1 p.m. In yet another unprecedented commitment to excellence in professional wrestling, the World Wrestling Federation presents WrestleMania, an exclusive, closed-circuit satellite broadcast on Sunday, March 31st, 1985, beginning at 1 p.m. in major arenas throughout the country. This professional wrestling extravaganza presents the top grudge matches of today's professional wrestling world. WWF promoters have signed, sealed, and delivered the matches you, the fans, want to see. Here are some of the top bouts already signed, and it lists them. And then at the bottom, once again, WrestleMania will bring you the greatest bouts of today's turbulent professional wrestling world. And it can only be viewed via closed circuit at arenas in your area. Watch any of the World Wrestling Federation's numerous top-rated television programs for the nearest viewing place in your area. Tickets are already on sale. WrestleMania, the gala event of all time in professional wrestling history. Don't miss it. Who was writing their copy?
I don't know, but I always enjoy it when somebody will tweet out a clip of like one of the TVs or the shows then from 1984-85 WWF, where the audience was still normal wrestling fans, but they're looking at this fucking whatever the fuck's going on in Vince Jr.'s mind now and going, what the fuck is this? And then, 3 years later, you look at the crowd, it's completely different people. They're going crazy, but there's none of the same fucking people that were there 5 years ago. They've run them all off. And they've managed to trade, selling out all those buildings in the Northeast. They ran all those people off and got a whole new group of people that would sell out the buildings for a little while.
Yeah, fans at the Garden used to stick out their tongues at the wrestlers. You don't see that anymore.
Yeah, not a lot of tongue stickers anymore.